Billy McFarland, Fyre Festival. The story of Fyre Festival starts the way every good scam starts, with an Instagram post. In late 2016, some of the most followed women on the planet, Kendall Jenner, Bella Hadid, Emily Ratajkowski, all posted the same mysterious orange tile on their feeds. No caption, no explanation, just vibes. Jenner alone was reportedly paid $250,000 for that one post. For context, that's more than most people's house for an orange square. The tile was promoting Fyre Festival, a luxury music festival in the Bahamas, organized by a 25-year-old named Billy McFarland and co-founded by rapper Ja Rule. The promotional video showed supermodels jet skiing, yachts gliding through turquoise water, and beaches that looked like a screensaver came to life. Tickets went up to $12,000, VIP packages even higher. Thousands of people bought in, and then they actually showed up. No luxury villas, no yachts, no Blink 182. The gourmet meals were cheese sandwiches in foam containers. The accommodations were leftover FEMA disaster relief tents with rain-soaked mattresses. Guests reported feral dogs, luggage thrown in dark parking lots, and fights breaking out over food. One attendee compared it to Lord of the Flies, which honestly is generous. At least Lord of the Flies had a pig roast. That cheese sandwich photo went viral instantly. It became the Mona Lisa of failure, the most iconic image of a scam in internet history. Behind the scenes, it was worse. McFarland's company, Fyre Media, told investors it was worth $90 million. Its actual revenue, about $60,000. The gap between those two numbers isn't a rounding error. It's a federal crime. McFarland was sentenced to 6 years in prison for wire fraud and ordered to pay back $26 million. But here's the part that should genuinely concern you. After getting out of prison in 2022, McFarland announced Fyre Festival 2. Tickets up to $1.1 million. Location still undecided. No artists booked. When asked about the food situation, he smiled and said they'd be serving cheese sandwiches again. But this time, they'd be super expensive. I want to move on, but my brain won't let me. A convicted fraud selling tickets to the sequel of his fraud, while joking about the evidence of his fraud. If confidence were a currency, Billy McFarland wouldn't need investors. Elizabeth Holmes, Theranos. In 2003, a 19-year-old Stanford sophomore named Elizabeth Holmes dropped out of college and used her tuition money to start a company. The name Theranos, a mashup of therapy and diagnosis, which is the kind of word you invent when you're building something either genuinely revolutionary or genuinely fake. It turned out to be the second one. Her pitch was this: a tiny device called the Edison, named after the inventor, because subtlety wasn't her thing, that could run over 200 blood tests from a single drop of blood. No needles, no vials. Faster, cheaper, better. If it worked, it would transform medicine forever. And the world believed her. Holmes raised over $700 million. Rupert Murdoch invested. The Walton family invested. Henry Kissinger, James Mattis, and George Shultz joined the board. Forbes put her on the cover. Fortune put her on the cover. Time put her on the cover. At 31, she was worth $9 billion, the youngest self-made female billionaire in America. But here's the problem. The Edison didn't work. The machine was wildly inaccurate. Many of the tests Theranos advertised were secretly being run on traditional lab equipment made by competitors. Behind the curtain, it was a magic show. And unlike a magic show, people got hurt. Real patients were misdiagnosed. People were told they had diseases they didn't have. Others were told they were healthy when they weren't. This wasn't just a business that didn't deliver. It was a business that put lives at risk and kept going anyway. In 2015, a Wall Street Journal reporter named John Carreyrou started pulling at the thread. Theranos tried to sue him. Employees who raised concerns internally were fired or threatened. Holmes ran the company with her secret boyfriend, Sunny Balwani, in what employees described as a culture of secrecy and fear. When Carreyrou's reporting came out, the dominoes fell fast. Forbes revised Holmes's net worth from $9 billion to zero. Not $1 million, not $100,000, $0. That's the largest net worth correction in Forbes history, and it sounds like something that should come with a sound effect. Holmes was convicted of defrauding investors in January 2022 and is now serving over 11 years in federal prison. Oh, and one more detail. Her father was a VP at Enron, which means fraud might be the one thing in her blood that the Edison could actually detect. By the way, if you're learning something from this video, it would mean a lot if you hit subscribe. No hidden fees, no cheese sandwiches, just more stories like this. Hulk Hogan, Pastamania. It's 1995. Hulk Hogan is at the peak of his powers, not in the ring, but apparently in the kitchen, because on Labor Day weekend, he opened a fast food pasta restaurant in the food court of the Mall of America in Bloomington, Minnesota. It was called Pastamania, with an exclamation point, because if your restaurant concept doesn't naturally excite people, you can always just punctuate your way to enthusiasm. The menu was exactly what you'd expect from a man whose catchphrase was, "What you gonna do, brother?" Items included Hulkaroos, Hulkaroni and cheese, and something called Hulk's Power Pasta. The kids' menu featured pasta shaped like Hogan himself, his head, his torso, his full body flexing, so a child could sit down and eat a bicep made of semolina. That's not a business plan, that's a fever dream. The grand opening was tied to the first ever episode of WCW Monday Nitro, which was broadcast live from the Mall of America. In between actual wrestling matches, Hogan cut a promo from inside the restaurant surrounded by fans he called Pastamaniacs, shouting that he had Pastamania running through my brain. As marketing goes, that's either genius or a medical emergency. The food was not great. One Reddit user who was there opening night described the fettuccine Alfredo as very watery. Another said it tasted like reheated 3-day-old Chef Boyardee. An actress who worked there as a teenager later said the restaurant was rarely busy, which is devastating when you're located inside the largest shopping mall in the country. Pastamania lasted less than a year. The exact date it closed? Nobody recorded it. That's how quietly it died. Hulk Hogan could body slam a 500-pound man in front of 93,000 people at WrestleMania, but he could not sell pasta to shoppers at a mall. Some opponents you just can't beat. Kim Basinger bought an entire town. In 1989, at the height of her Hollywood career, fresh off Batman, riding an Oscar wave, Basinger and a group of business partners spent $20 million to buy 1,700 acres and about 50 buildings in Braselton, Georgia. Population at the time, roughly 500 people. That's not a town. That's a large wedding. The plan was ambitious. Turn Braselton into a Hollywood hub, film studios, recording studios, a theme park, film festivals. She wanted to make rural Georgia the next entertainment capital of the South, which is a beautiful dream. But dreams need more than ambition. They need, for instance, a working sewage system. Braselton did not have a great sewage system. 3 years later, a Chicago Tribune reporter drove out to Braselton to check on progress. What he found was quiet. The only businesses still open downtown were a furniture store and a dentist's office. The postmaster told him, "It's deader than it was 3 years ago." Locals said Basinger had barely visited. Her brother, who managed the deal, said they couldn't find additional investors. The Hollywood magic never showed up. Neither did the plumbing upgrades. Then things got really bad. Basinger dropped out of a movie called Boxing Helena, a film about a woman whose arms and legs are amputated by an obsessed surgeon. So, honestly, walking away from that might have been the best decision she ever made. But the production company sued her for $8.1 million for breach of contract. She was forced into bankruptcy. The town was sold in 1995 for $4.3 million. $20 million in, $4 million out. That's not an investment. That's donating a town to yourself and then giving it back. The Kardashians, the Kardashian card. In November 2010, Kim, Kourtney, and Khloe Kardashian launched a prepaid debit card called the Kardashian card. And yes, they spelled card with a K, because when you're the Kardashians, the letter C is just a K that hasn't committed yet. The card was marketed as a way for young fans to manage their money responsibly, which is a beautiful sentiment right up until you look at the fee structure. It cost up to $99.95 a year just to own. $1 every time you loaded money. $1.50 to use an ATM, $1.50 to call customer service, $2 for every bill you paid, and $6 to cancel. They charge you money to stop losing money. It was a subscription service to being broke. The Connecticut Attorney General called the fees pernicious and predatory and specifically pointed out that the card targeted financially unsophisticated young adults. The Kardashian card lasted less than a month. The issuing bank halted sales. The Kardashians pulled their names and said they cared about their fans and didn't want anyone to be hurt financially. The company behind the card later sued the Kardashians for $75 million, claiming the sisters destroyed the business by publicly walking away. The judge dismissed the case, ruling that the product's own terrible features killed it, not the Kardashians' exit. In other words, the card didn't fail because they left. It failed because they showed up. Donald Trump, steaks, university, vodka, shuttle. Most people on this list have one spectacular failure. Donald Trump has a catalog. So rather than spending 10 minutes on one, let's speedrun the greatest hits. Trump steaks. 2007, USDA prime beef, actually decent quality, sold exclusively through the Sharper Image, a store famous for massage chairs and noise machines. You'd walk in looking for a Bluetooth speaker and leave with a frozen porterhouse. After 2 months, the Sharper Image CEO admitted they'd sold almost no steaks. The line was discontinued. Sharper Image filed for bankruptcy a year later, which wasn't Trump's fault, but the visual is still poetry. Trump vodka. 2006, came in a gold-accented skyscraper-shaped bottle. The catch, Trump doesn't drink, has never had a drink. A man who has never tasted his own product is not selling vodka. He's selling a bottle. Production ended by 2011. Trump University, 2005, charged up to $35,000 for real estate seminars taught by instructors who, according to internal documents, were trained to use aggressive sales tactics rather than actual real estate expertise. The New York Attorney General sued, calling it fraud. 6,000 students were affected. It ended in a $25 million settlement with no admission of wrongdoing, which is the legal equivalent of paying someone to stop talking about it. And the big one? Trump Shuttle, 1988. Trump paid roughly $365 million for a regional airline and gave it the Trump treatment: gold-plated fixtures, leather seats, maple wood veneer. The problem was that people flying the Boston to New York shuttle at 7 a.m. on a Tuesday don't want luxury. They want to land on time and not sit next to someone eating tuna. The airline bled money and was eventually handed to creditors. 4 businesses, 4 flameouts. And somehow, the man still put his name on buildings. Say what you want about the results, but the confidence is undefeated. Planet Hollywood, Stalin, Schwarzenegger, Willis. In 1991, someone looked at the Hard Rock Cafe and thought, what if this, but movies? And then they got 3 of the biggest action stars on the planet: Sylvester Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and Bruce Willis, to put their names, their faces, and their money behind it. Planet Hollywood opened in Manhattan with 350 seats and a simple promise: eat dinner surrounded by actual movie props while maybe, just maybe, spotting a real celebrity at the next table. The first few years were electric. Every new location opened with a red carpet event. Celebrities showed up, tourists lined up. By the mid-90s, there were over 60 Planet Hollywood restaurants worldwide. The stock hit $32 a share on day 1 of public trading. It felt unstoppable. But here's what nobody was talking about while they gawked at the prop from Terminator 2 in the lobby. The food was bad. Not for the price bad, just bad. Stallone himself once said he'd be happy eating meals in pill form because he's just not prone to chew a lot. Same-store sales dropped 18% in a single year. People went once for the experience, looked at the Batman suit, posted a photo, and never came back. The company filed for bankruptcy in 1999 with $359 million in debt. Then again in 2001, then a third time in 2025. Schwarzenegger sold his shares in 2000 and said he was disappointed. Today there are exactly 2 Planet Hollywood restaurants left, one in Times Square and one at Disney Springs. 2 locations that survive entirely on foot traffic from people who've never heard the phrase, check the reviews first. Curt Schilling, 38 Studios. Schilling was a legitimate baseball legend. 3-time All-Star, World Series hero, famous for pitching with a bloody ankle, the bloody sock game. But his real passion wasn't baseball, it was video games. He was a hardcore gamer who dreamed of building a massive multiplayer online game to rival World of Warcraft. In 2006, he founded a studio called 38 Studios. He poured $50 million of his own money into it. When he went looking for outside funding, Wall Street said no. Boston venture capitalists said no. Massachusetts said no. 3 rejections from people and institutions that should know a bad bet when they see one. So Schilling went to Rhode Island, and Rhode Island, in the middle of the Great Recession, desperate for jobs, said yes. The state offered a $75 million guaranteed loan to bring 38 studios to Providence. 38 studios moved to Providence, hired 379 employees, released exactly one game, Kingdoms of Amalur: Reckoning, to middling reviews and soft sales. The company was burning through cash faster than it could make it. And then came the moment that separates this from every other story. As the money ran out, 38 Studios leadership encouraged employees to keep showing up to work, keep working, keep building, even though the company knew it couldn't make payroll. Employees found out they weren't getting paid when they checked their bank accounts and the deposits weren't there. 38 Studios filed for bankruptcy in 2012. Schilling lost his personal fortune and eventually sold his home. The state clawed back about $61 million through years of lawsuits. Schilling himself settled for $2.5 million. If you made it to the end, you just watched 8 different ways to turn fame into a financial disaster. Some were funny, some were infuriating. All of them were real. The pattern is always the same: someone famous enough to attract money, but not experienced enough to know what to do with it, and a room full of people too starstruck to say no. Subscribe if you want more. I'll be here. No luxury island, no exclamation point, and absolutely no pasta shaped like my body.